What makes a woman endure 7 years of emotional torture, financial abandonment, cheating, humiliation and neglect, while raising 2 children alone? Today you'll hear a story that proves that sometimes love isn't blindness, it's survival. My name is Melissa Damian and I suppose I should have seen it coming. They say hindsight is 20/20, but when you're 24 years old, pregnant and desperately in love with a man in uniform, you don't see the red flags. You see possibilities. You see potential. You see the version of him he showed you during courtship, not the monster lurking beneath. I met James Damian 7 years ago in Bristol, at a military charity event my friend Charlotte dragged me to. He was stationed at the nearby barracks then, a freshly minted lieutenant with the British Army, all polish and promise. He had that way about him, confident, charming, with eyes that seemed to look right through you and see something special. When he asked for my number that night, I felt like the luckiest woman in the room. "You're different," he told me on our 3rd date, over dinner at a riverside restaurant in Bath. "You're real. All these other women, they just want the uniform, the status. But you see me." I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. We dated for 8 months before I fell pregnant. I was finishing my undergraduate degree in education at the University of Bristol, preparing to apply for my master's program. When I told James about the baby, I expected panic, maybe even rejection. Instead he surprised me. "Marry me," he said, dropping to one knee right there in my tiny flat in Clifton. "I want this, Melissa. I want you, I want our baby. Let's do this properly. Traditional wedding, church wedding, the whole thing. I'll take care of you both. I promise." His parents, Richard and Margaret Damian, seemed lovely, church-going people from Manchester with warm smiles and good manners. His younger sister, Emma, was studying nursing in Leeds and couldn't stop gushing about how happy she was to have me as a sister-in-law. Everything seemed perfect, like something out of a storybook. We married quickly. A small traditional ceremony followed by a church wedding at St. Mary's in Manchester, where his family attended. I wore my mother's vintage lace dress, altered to accommodate my growing belly. My own parents, David and Helen Carter from Southampton, had their reservations. I could see it in my father's eyes during our first dance. But they loved me and wanted me happy. "If he's the one, love," my father whispered in my ear that day, "then we support you. But if he ever mistreats you, you come straight home. Promise me." I promised. How I wish I'd kept that promise sooner. Shortly after our wedding, James received his deployment orders. He was being sent to a forward operating base, a rotation that would last 6 months. By then I'd been accepted into the master's program in educational leadership at King's College London, a dream opportunity I'd worked years toward. "You go to London," James said, kissing my forehead as he packed his kit. "Focus on your studies. I'll send money every month for you and the baby. When I'm back, we'll figure out where to settle permanently. Maybe Liverpool, maybe back down south. We'll make it work." Those first weeks in London were hard. I'd found a small flat in Lewisham, affordable but cramped, sharing with another postgraduate student named Priya Sharma who became my lifeline. The pregnancy was difficult. Morning sickness that lasted all day, swollen ankles, exhaustion that made studying nearly impossible. But I persevered, attending lectures, writing papers, preparing for motherhood alone. The money James promised came sporadically. The first month, nothing. I called repeatedly, left messages, sent texts. Finally, he answered. "Christ, Melissa, I've been in the field. Do you think I'm sitting around with mobile signal out here? I'll send something when I can." 3 weeks later, £500 appeared in my account. £500 to cover rent, food, bills, baby supplies, travel. I'd been expecting at least twice that. When I called to clarify, he grew defensive. "I'm risking my bloody life out here and you're complaining about money? Do you know what I deal with every day? Be grateful for what you get." I swallowed my pride and called my mother. She and my father sent £800 without question, money they couldn't really afford. My father had retired from his job as a postal worker, and they were living on his pension and my mother's part-time income as a teaching assistant. The pattern continued for months. James would send £500 here, £700 there. Never enough, always late, always accompanied by excuses and accusations of my ingratitude. I burned through my savings from my previous job as a teaching assistant, the £4,000 I'd carefully accumulated over 2 years. When I was 8 months pregnant, I called to tell him I needed money for baby supplies. A cot, pram, nappies, clothes. I sent you £300 last week, he said, his voice flat. James, that went to rent and food. I need money specifically for God's sake, Melissa. What do you think I am, a cash machine? I'm in a bloody war zone. Figure it out. He sent £300 2 weeks later. I bought second-hand items from charity shops in Deptford, accepted hand-me-downs from Priya's sister who had a toddler and made it work. That's what you do when you're pregnant and alone. You make it work. Our son, Oliver James Damien, was born on a rainy October morning at Lewisham Hospital. Labor lasted 14 hours. I had Priya with me, her hand in mine as I pushed and screamed and cried for James, who was thousands of miles away. He's perfect, Priya whispered, tears streaming down her face as she looked at Oliver's tiny, scrunched-up features. Melissa, he's absolutely perfect. I called James as soon as I was able. It rang 6 times before going to voicemail. James, it's me. He's here. Our son is here. Oliver James, born at 6:47 this morning, 7 pounds 4 ounces. He's perfect. Call me when you can. I love you. He called 3 days later. Sorry, we've been on operations. Congratulations. Send me a photo when you get a chance. That was it. No excitement, no emotion, just a perfunctory acknowledgement of his firstborn's arrival. When I sent photos, he responded with, nice. He looks like me. The next few months blurred together. Sleepless nights, endless nappy changes, trying to balance coursework with caring for a newborn. James sent £600 total over those 3 months. I was surviving on student loans, my parents' contributions, and the kindness of friends like Priya. Then 8 months after Oliver's birth, I received a call that changed everything. Mrs. Damien? This is Major Thompson from your husband's unit. There's been an incident. Lieutenant Damien was injured in an IED explosion. He's stable, but he's being treated at the field hospital. We'll keep you updated. My blood ran cold. How badly is he hurt? Shrapnel wounds to his right side and leg. He'll recover, but it'll take time. We're arranging for him to be transferred to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Birmingham for further treatment. I arranged for Priya to watch Oliver, packed a bag and took the train to Birmingham the next day. When I arrived at the hospital, navigating the maze of corridors to the military wing, I barely recognized James. He lay in the bed, pale and gaunt, bandages covering his right side. James, I whispered, taking his hand. I'm here. I'm here now. His eyes flickered open. Melissa, you didn't have to come. Of course I came. You're my husband. You were hurt. Over the next month I stayed in Birmingham, finding a cheap hotel near the hospital and visiting James every day. Oliver stayed with my parents in Southampton. I missed him desperately, but I felt it was my duty to be there for James. Here's what I learned during that month. James had been sending me scraps while living quite comfortably. His fellow soldiers would mention nights out in camp, poker games with significant pots, the laptop and gaming equipment in his quarters. One soldier, a corporal named Davies, pulled me aside one day. Mrs. Damien, can I be frank with you? Of course. Your husband, he's not well liked in the unit. He's got a reputation for being tight with money, especially when it comes to standing his ground at the bar. But he'll throw money around when it suits him. Bought a fancy watch last month, must have cost him £800 at least. I just thought you should know the kind of man you married. I thanked him, numb, and went back to James's room. He was awake, scrolling through his phone. James, we need to talk about money. He looked up, irritated. Not this again. Yes, this again. You're earning what? £28,000 a year as a lieutenant? Where is that money going? Because I'm barely surviving on what you send me. I have expenses, Melissa. Kit meals, phone bills. You're on deployment. The army covers most of that. James, I'm living on less than £800 a month with a baby. £800. Do you know what rent alone costs in London? We argued. He accused me of being ungrateful, said I didn't understand military life, claimed he was doing his best. I cried. He shut down and nothing changed. When James was discharged and sent to recover at his parents' house in Manchester, I returned to London to finish my master's program. I had 3 months left and I was determined to complete it because by then I understood. I couldn't rely on James. I needed my own career, my own income, my own independence. After completing my master's, graduating with distinction despite everything, I faced a decision. James had recovered and been promoted to captain, with a new posting at the naval base in Portsmouth. He wanted us to move there together to finally live as a proper family. Things will be different, he promised over the phone. I'm earning more now. £38,000 a year. I'll rent us a proper house not on base. We'll have space, privacy. Fresh start, Melissa. For us and Oliver. Against my better judgment, against the little voice in my head screaming to run, I agreed. I wanted Oliver to have his father. I wanted to believe James could change. We moved to Portsmouth in September to a 3-bedroom terraced house in Southsea, near the seafront. James had arranged it all, or so he said. When we arrived, I discovered he'd rented the house but hadn't paid the first month's rent yet. Just a temporary cash flow issue, he explained. I'll sort it next week when my pay comes through. I paid the first month's rent with the last of my savings, £9.50, because I couldn't bear to be homeless with a 1-year-old. James's behavior in Portsmouth revealed the true depth of his dysfunction. He'd leave the house at 8 a.m., telling me he was going to base and wouldn't return until midnight or later. His phone would be off or he'd ignore my calls. When he did come home, he reeked of alcohol and cigarettes. Where were you? I'd ask. Out with the lads from the unit. Team building. It's important for morale, Melissa. You wouldn't understand. But I was starting to understand perfectly. I found receipts in his pockets. £150 at a nightclub in Gunwharf Quays, £200 at a restaurant I'd never been to, £80 on rounds of drinks. Meanwhile, the fridge was nearly empty and I was feeding Oliver and myself on £40 a week. I started looking for work, applying to every school within commuting distance. Finally, in November, I secured a position as a Year 3 teacher at a primary school in Fareham, starting in January. The salary was £28,000. Not much, but it was mine. When I told James, he shrugged. Good. You can start pulling your weight around here. Pulling my weight. As if I hadn't been doing exactly that while he threw money at strangers in bars. The real breaking point came in spring. James had been promoted to major and was serving as second in command at the base. With the promotion came a pay increase to nearly £45,000 annually, plus additional allowances and benefits. He was also assigned quarters on base, a 2-bedroom flat he could use during the week. It's just easier, he explained when he started sleeping there 4 or 5 nights a week. Early starts, late finishes. I'll come home on weekends. But weekends came and went with no James. I'd call, he'd ignore. I'd text, he'd respond hours later with one-word answers. Oliver, now 2 years old, would ask for Daddy and I'd make excuses. Daddy's at work, sweetheart. He's very busy keeping people safe. The truth was, I had no idea where James was or what he was doing. One Sunday in April, I decided enough was enough. I packed Oliver into the car, my ancient Ford Fiesta that I'd bought for £1,200, and drove to the base. I'd only been there twice before, but I remembered where the officers' quarters were. It took me an hour to find James's flat, Oliver getting cranky in the car. Finally, I located Building 7, Flat C. I'd prepared a proper Sunday roast, chicken, roast potatoes, vegetables, Yorkshire puddings, all packed in containers. My plan was to surprise him, to remind him he had a family who loved him. I knocked. No answer. Tried the door, locked. So I waited in the car, Oliver eventually falling asleep in his car seat. At 6:30 p.m. I heard an engine. James's Audi pulled up, the car he'd bought 6 months earlier for £25,000, a purchase he'd never discussed with me. I started to smile, ready to wave, when I saw he wasn't alone. A woman sat in the passenger seat. Young, pretty, laughing at something he'd said. My heart stopped. James noticed me as he was opening his door. I saw his face change, shock then anger. He immediately reversed the car and drove away, the woman looking confused. I sat there, stunned, Oliver still sleeping beside me. My phone buzzed. James, what the hell are you doing here? You can't just show up unannounced. Me, who is she? No response. I called, declined. Called again, declined. Sent a dozen messages. Nothing. Oliver woke up crying. I couldn't sit there anymore, so I drove home, the containers of food growing cold in the boot. James came to the house 2 days later, entering with his own key while I was making breakfast. We need to talk, he said. Yes, we do. Who was she, James? Nobody. A colleague. We were going over paperwork and I was giving her a lift home. At 6:30 on a Sunday? With her laughing like that. Melissa, you're paranoid. There was no woman. I was alone, and when I saw you hadn't told me you were coming, I decided to leave because I was pissed off at your lack of respect for my space. The gaslighting was so blatant, so absurd I almost laughed. I saw her, James. Clear as day. You're seeing things. You're stressed, probably postpartum depression or something. Maybe you should see someone. We argued for an hour before he left, slamming the door so hard Oliver started crying. How does a man fund side chicks but ignore his own family? The next day I did something I'd never done before. I contacted James's commanding officer directly. Colonel Martin Harrison was a man in his 50s, respected throughout the base, known for running a tight ship. James had mentioned him before, usually complaining about his strict standards. I sent a formal email requesting a meeting to discuss family welfare concerns. To my surprise, Colonel Harrison responded within 2 hours, inviting me to meet him at his office that Friday. When I arrived, Colonel Harrison was everything James wasn't: professional, respectful, genuinely concerned. I told him everything: the financial neglect, the disappeared money, James's absences, the woman in the car. Mrs. Damien, he said, his expression grave, I appreciate you coming forward with this. What you're describing is concerning on multiple levels. A major in His Majesty's Army has certain standards to uphold, both professionally and personally. I don't want to ruin his career, I said quickly. I just want him to be a husband and father. I want him to support his family. Colonel Harrison nodded. I understand. Let me look into this. In the meantime, I want you to know that Major Damien receives several allowances beyond his base salary, approximately £800 per month for various expenses. If he's not using those to support his family, that's a problem. My jaw dropped. £800 a month? On top of his salary? Yes. Has he not been? Colonel Harrison stopped, understanding flooding his face. I see. That evening James appeared at the house, furious. You went to my CO? Do you have any idea what you've done? I told him the truth. You embarrassed me. Made me look like a deadbeat. Harrison's threatening to dock my pay, to send money directly to you. Do you know what that'll do to my reputation? Maybe you should have thought of that before you neglected your family. For the first time in our marriage, James hit me. Not hard, a slap across the face, more shock than pain, but enough. Enough to cross a line we couldn't uncross. I stood there, hand on my burning cheek, Oliver watching from the doorway with wide, frightened eyes. Get out, I whispered. Get out of this house right now. He left. And for the first time I wondered seriously about divorce. The next few months were marginally better. Colonel Harrison had indeed arranged for a portion of James's pay to be sent directly to me, £600 per month. Combined with my teaching salary, it was enough to survive, even save a little. James and I existed in a state of cold détente. He'd visit once or twice a month, spend an hour with Oliver, then leave. We rarely spoke beyond logistics. I'd stopped expecting anything resembling a real marriage. Then, in November, I discovered I was pregnant again. I sat on the bathroom floor of our house, staring at the positive test, wondering how this had happened. We'd had sex exactly twice in the previous 6 months. Awkward, perfunctory encounters that felt more like obligation than intimacy. When I told James, his reaction was underwhelming. Right. Another one then. Is that all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Melissa? Congratulations. It's done now, isn't it? The pregnancy was harder than the first. I was working full-time, caring for Oliver, who was now 3, and dealing with severe morning sickness. James's contributions dropped despite his promises. The £600 from Colonel Harrison's intervention stopped after James transferred to a new unit in Tidworth, Wiltshire, and I was back to receiving sporadic payments of £300 to £400 monthly. House rent came due. I'll sort it, James promised. He didn't. I paid it myself. Antenatal classes needed booking and paying for. I'm a bit short this month, James said. I paid for them myself. Maternity clothes, supplements, hospital bag supplies, all on my credit card, which was climbing toward its £3,000 limit. In my second trimester I lost my father. David Carter, the man who'd walked me down the aisle, who'd loved Oliver like his own, who'd supported me through everything, died suddenly of a heart attack. I was devastated. James didn't come to the funeral. "I'm on an exercise I can't get out of," he claimed. I later discovered from his sister Emma that he'd been on leave that week but had gone to a football match in Manchester instead. Why do we fight to save a marriage when the other person has already left emotionally? If this story is touching your heart, subscribe. This channel tells the stories no one else talks about. My father's death broke something in me. I stood at his graveside in Southampton, Oliver holding my hand, my pregnant belly stretching my black dress, and I realized I was essentially a widow anyway. James was a ghost in our lives, present in name only. Our daughter, Amelia Rose Damien, was born in March at Salisbury Hospital. I'd driven myself there during early labor, contractions 5 minutes apart, because James wasn't answering his phone. My neighbor in Portsmouth, a lovely woman named Jean Whitmore, stayed with Oliver. Amelia came quickly, 4 hours of labor, and was healthy, thank God. 7 pounds even, with a full head of dark hair and James's blue eyes. I called him from the hospital bed, Amelia sleeping in my arms. "James, she's here. We have a daughter. Amelia Rose." "That's brilliant, Melissa. Really brilliant. Listen, I'm in the middle of something. Can I call you back?" He didn't call back that day. Or the next. Or the day after that. He finally visited when Amelia was a week old, stayed 20 minutes, held her awkwardly like she might break, and left. "She's lovely," he said before going. "Well done." As if I'd completed a project, not given birth to his child. The postnatal period was hell. I was exhausted, hormonal, trying to breastfeed while managing a demanding 3-year-old who was acting out from the change in routine. My maternity leave was unpaid. My school didn't offer paid leave for second children, and James sent exactly £1,000 over those 3 months. £1,000. For 3 months. For a family of 4. I went back to work when Amelia was 8 weeks old because I had no choice. Jean agreed to watch both children. I paid her £600 a month, money I didn't have, but what else could I do? My mother, Helen, came to stay for 2 weeks to help. On her last day, as I drove her to Portsmouth Station, she said something that haunts me still. "Melissa, love, I need to ask you something. Why are you staying?" "What do you mean?" "With James. Why are you staying with him? He's not a husband. He's barely a father. You're doing everything alone anyway. Why stay?" I didn't have a good answer then. I'm not sure I have one now. "For the children," I said finally. "They deserve a father." "But do they deserve this father?" my mother asked gently. "Because from where I'm standing, they might be better off without him. And so might you." When Amelia was 6 months old, James received new orders. A posting to Tidworth Garrison, a large army base on Salisbury Plain. He'd be second in command of an infantry battalion, a significant career step. "This is good for us," he said during one of his rare visits. "More money, better opportunities. You should think about moving to Tidworth." "I have a job in Fareham, James. A job I need because you don't support us. And the children are settled. Oliver's in nursery, Amelia has her routine. Always excuses with you. They're not excuses. They're reality. If you actually contributed financially, maybe I could consider it. But you don't, so I can't afford to leave my job to follow you around the country." We didn't speak for 3 weeks after that. Over the next year and a half, James became a phantom. He'd go months without visiting. The money became even more sporadic. Sometimes £400, sometimes £200, sometimes nothing at all. I'd call his mobile and it would go straight to voicemail. I'd send messages that showed as read, but received no response. Oliver, now 5, started asking questions. "Why doesn't Daddy live with us? Why doesn't he call? Doesn't he love us?" I had no answers that didn't break my heart. I reported James to his commanding officer twice more, to different men who promised to intervene. Each time James would send a lump sum, once £900, once £1,200, then disappear again. The house rent went unpaid for months. Our landlord, Mr. Peters, was sympathetic but firm. "Mrs. Damien, I need the rent. I have a mortgage to pay. If you can't pay, I'll have to ask you to leave." I paid. Always I paid. My credit cards maxed out. I borrowed £2,000 from my brother Thomas, who lived in Cardiff. I sold jewelry, my laptop, anything I could spare. Meanwhile, through Emma, I learned James was living quite well. He'd bought a new car, a BMW 3 Series. He'd been on a lad's holiday to Spain. He'd bought a £1,500 gaming setup for his quarters. The betrayal was complete. Last November, 7 years after our wedding, I made a decision. I blocked James's number. I was done. Done chasing him for money. Done begging him to be a father. Done pretending we had a marriage. For 2 months, blessed silence. I managed on my salary alone, budgeting every penny, but at least I had my dignity. Then in January he started calling from different numbers. His sister called, begging me to unblock him. His mother called, saying he was worried about me and the children. Worried? I said to Margaret. He's worried? Where was his worry for the past 7 years? But Margaret begged, and I've always been too soft. On New Year's Day I unblocked him. He called immediately. Melissa, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I needed space, James. I understand. Listen, I'm being sent to London for a course. Officer training at Sandhurst, actually 4-week program. I'll be coming through Portsmouth. Can I stay at the house for a few days before I head up? Every instinct screamed no. But I said yes because I'm an idiot. James arrived on January 4th with one small bag and empty hands. No gifts for the children. No groceries. No contribution to bills. Nothing. He stayed for 5 days. He ate my food, slept in my bed, I took the sofa, used my electricity and water, and treated the house like a hotel. He even borrowed my brother Thomas's car, the same brother he'd never thanked for lending me money, and returned it reeking of alcohol and cigarettes with vomit stains on the back seat. What happened? I demanded. Went out with some old mates. Had a few too many. No big deal. No big deal. You could have killed someone driving in that state. You could have been arrested. But I wasn't, so stop nagging. One night while he slept I checked his phone. I know it was wrong, an invasion of privacy, but I was desperate for truth. What I found destroyed me. Messages to at least 5 different women. Some sexual, some romantic, all inappropriate. Requests for meetups when he was on leave. Complaints about his psycho wife who won't leave him alone. Photos I never want to think about again. And bank transactions. Transfers to women. £150 here, £80 there, £200 to someone called Amber. Money he claimed he didn't have for his children's school fees, sent to strangers for God knows what. I put the phone back and went to the bathroom, where I cried silently so I wouldn't wake the children. When James left for Sandhurst I didn't say goodbye. Oliver and Amelia waved from the window. He didn't look back. February was the month everything collapsed. School fees came due. £640 for Oliver's primary school, another £280 for his after-school club. I called James. No answer. Texted him. Read but no response. James, Oliver's school is threatening to withdraw him if we don't pay by Friday. Please. Nothing. On Thursday Oliver came home with a letter. Dear Mrs. Damien, as we have not received payment for this term's fees, we regret to inform you that Oliver will be unable to attend school from Monday until the account is settled. Oliver couldn't read the letter, but he saw my face. Am I in trouble, Mummy? No, baby. Never. Mummy will fix it. But I couldn't fix it. My credit cards were maxed. My overdraft was at its limit. I had £87 in my account and payday was a week away. I called James 15 times that day. All declined. Finally, I sent a message. I need Oliver's school documents for something. Send me photos of them. He responded, what do you need them for? Just admin. Can you send them please? Sort out the school fees first, then we'll talk. I lost it. You absolute bastard. You're holding your son's education hostage? What kind of father are you? The kind who's sick of your whining. Sort yourself out, Melissa. Comment your thoughts. Should she have left earlier? I'm reading everything. I was crying so hard I could barely see my phone screen. I called the only person I could think of, Colonel Martin Harrison, who'd helped me before. He'd retired from the military but was now working in veteran services in Winchester. Colonel Harrison, I'm so sorry to bother you. Mrs. Damien? What's wrong? I told him everything, words tumbling over each other. When I finished there was a long silence. Melissa, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What James is doing isn't just morally wrong, it's potentially illegal. Service personnel have a duty to provide for their families. I'm going to make some calls. In the meantime, I want you to give me the school's details. I'll pay these fees myself and James will pay me back one way or another. I can't let you do that. You can and you will. Those children are innocent in all this. Give me the details. He paid £920 to cover everything. Oliver went back to school on Monday, oblivious to the drama. But I wasn't oblivious anymore. I was awake. Fully, painfully awake to what my life had become. After Colonel Harrison's intervention, something shifted in me. It wasn't a gradual awakening, it was sudden, like a switch being flipped. I'd spent 7 years making excuses, holding on to hope, believing in potential that never existed. But that night, sitting at my kitchen table with bills spread before me and my children sleeping upstairs, I faced the truth. James Damien would never change. I started documenting everything. Every missed payment. Every ignored call. Every broken promise. I created a spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and notes. 7 years of financial neglect laid out in stark columns and rows. The numbers were damning. Total received from James over 7 years. Approximately £31,400. What he should have contributed, at minimum 40% of his income, approximately £98,000, and deficit. £66,600. £66,600. That's what his neglect had cost us. That's what I'd made up through my own earnings, family loans, credit card debt, and sacrifice. I also started gathering testimony. I contacted former neighbors who'd witnessed his absences. I reached out to teachers who'd seen me struggle with school fees. I got written statements from Colonel Harrison and 2 other officers who'd witnessed James's behavior. I even contacted Corporal Davies, the soldier who'd told me about James's spending habits. He was out of the service now and willing to testify. My friend Charlotte, who'd introduced us all those years ago, was horrified when I finally told her the full story. "Melissa, why didn't you say something sooner? We could have helped." I was ashamed, I admitted. We were having coffee at her flat in Bath, the children with my mother for the weekend. I thought if I just tried harder, if I was more patient, if I managed better. "None of this is your fault," Charlotte said firmly. "You know that, right? You've been abused, Melissa. Financial abuse is real abuse." That word, abuse, had been floating around in my head for months, but hearing someone else say it made it real. Made it undeniable. I'd started seeing Dr. Rashida Amin, a therapist specializing in domestic abuse, through the NHS. In our sessions, she helped me understand the patterns. Abusers often isolate their victims financially, she explained in one session. By controlling the money, they control your choices. You can't leave because you don't have resources. You can't make independent decisions. You're trapped. "But I work," I protested. "I earn my own money." "Which you have to use to cover his responsibilities. So you never get ahead. You never have savings. You never have security. That's by design, Melissa. That's how financial abuse works." She also helped me understand something else. Staying wasn't weakness. It was a survival strategy. What exactly was she holding on to? Can a man like this ever change? "Women stay for many reasons," Dr. Amin said. "Hope that things will change. Fear of the unknown. Concern for children. Shame about the situation. Financial dependence. All of these are valid, understandable reasons. The question isn't why you stayed. The question is, what do you need to leave safely now?" By March I had a plan. A real, concrete plan for getting out. First, I needed legal advice. Through a referral from Dr. Amin, I found Patricia Chin, a family law solicitor in Southampton who offered reduced rates for domestic abuse cases. "Your case is strong," Patricia said after reviewing my documentation. "Very strong. The court will look favorably on a mother who's been the primary caregiver and financial provider while the father has been essentially absent." We discussed my options. Divorce petition on grounds of unreasonable behavior. James's financial neglect, repeated infidelity, physical violence, the slap, and abandonment of family duties would all support this. Child arrangements. I wanted full custody with supervised visitation for James. Patricia explained this was called a child arrangements order, and given his history, the court would likely grant it. Financial orders. Child maintenance, school fees, medical expenses, and potentially spousal maintenance during the transition period. Property and assets. We'd need to determine what James owned, the BMW, any savings, his military pension rights. "I want to warn you," Patricia said gently, "this will be expensive and emotionally draining. James will likely fight back. Men like him don't like losing control. I don't care, I said. I need to be free. The estimated cost was £8,000 to £12,000 if it went to court. Money I didn't have. But Patricia suggested several options. Legal aid I might qualify given the abuse, payment plans and pro bono support from her firm for the most egregious cases. Let me take this to my partners, she said. I think we can make an arrangement. 2 weeks later, Patricia called with good news. Her firm would take my case on a reduced fee basis. £4,000 total payable over 2 years. It was still a fortune but manageable. When can we start? I asked. After your father's memorial service, Patricia said. You mentioned that's important to you. We'll file the day after. My father's memorial service was scheduled for April 11th, exactly 1 year after his death. My mother had organized it at St. Peter's Church in Southampton, the same church where my parents had married 40 years earlier. The night before the service, my family gathered at my mother's house. My brother Thomas and his wife Rachel, my sister Rebecca and her husband Michael, my Aunt Linda, my Uncle Peter and various cousins. Oliver and Amelia were running around with their cousins, blissfully unaware of the adult concerns. After dinner, once the children were occupied with a film in the living room, I asked my siblings and mother to stay in the kitchen. I need to tell you all something, I began, my hands shaking. Something I should have told you years ago. Over the next hour I told them everything. Every detail I've recounted here. The neglect, the money, the women, the violence, the abandonment. I showed them the spreadsheets, the bank statements, the documentation. Thomas's face grew darker as I spoke. That bastard, he muttered. I'll kill him. Tom, Rachel said, putting a hand on his arm. No, I mean it. 7 years. 7 years of this and you never said anything? I was ashamed, I whispered. Rebecca was crying. Melissa, we would have helped. We would have done anything. I know. But I thought I could fix it. I thought he'd change. My mother, who'd been quiet throughout, finally spoke. Your father knew. We all turned to her. He didn't know the extent, she continued, but he knew something was very wrong. He tried to talk to you about it several times, but you always said everything was fine. It broke his heart watching you suffer and not being able to help. I dissolved into tears. I'm so sorry, Mum. I'm so sorry. She held me, this strong woman who'd raised 3 children and buried her husband. You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. But Melissa, you need to leave him. You need to divorce him and never look back. I said. I'm filing the papers on Monday. Thomas straightened. Good. And we'll all support you. Whatever you need, money, childcare, a place to stay, a character witness in court, we're here. I'll give evidence, Rebecca added. About how he treated you, how absent he's been. Me too, said Aunt Linda from the doorway. We hadn't realized she'd been listening. I've watched this unfold for years and said nothing. I'm done being silent. The relief of finally being honest with my family was overwhelming. For the first time in 7 years I didn't feel alone. The memorial service for my father was beautiful and heartbreaking. Over 100 people attended. Family, friends, former colleagues from the postal service, neighbors, people whose lives Dad had touched. The vicar spoke about Dad's kindness, his dedication to family, his quiet faith. Thomas gave a eulogy that had everyone in tears. Rebecca sang Amazing Grace, Dad's favorite hymn, her voice cracking but strong. I'd prepared something to say, but when I stood at the lectern looking out at all those faces, the words I'd practiced disappeared. Instead, I spoke from my heart. My father was the best man I've ever known, I began. He taught me about integrity, about keeping promises, about showing up for the people you love. He taught me that real strength isn't about being loud or domineering. It's about being reliable, being honest, being there. For the past year since he died, I've been trying to figure out how to honor his memory. And I've realized, I honor him by living according to the values he taught me. By having the courage to demand the respect I deserve. By showing my children what real love looks like, not through words but through actions. Dad, if you're listening, I want you to know, I finally understand. And I'm going to make you proud. I saw James briefly during the reception. He'd shown up without telling me, standing awkwardly by the refreshments table. He approached me once. Melissa, I'm sorry for your loss. Are you? I said coldly. You couldn't be bothered to come to his funeral. You never even called my mother. I know. I've been rubbish. But I want to change. I want to be better. It's too late, James. You'll be receiving papers from my solicitor next week. His face hardened. Don't do this, Melissa. It's already done. He left shortly after. It was the last time I saw him in person. Patricia filed the divorce petition on April 12th. James was served with papers at his barracks on April 15th. His response came through his solicitor, a man named Jeffrey Hamilton from a firm in Salisbury, on April 22nd. James was contesting everything. He denied financial neglect, claiming he'd sent money regularly. Lies. He denied infidelity, calling my evidence fabricated. More lies. He denied being an absent father, claiming I'd prevented contact. Absolute lies. He demanded shared custody, claiming I was an unstable mother, weaponizing my therapy against me. And he claimed he couldn't afford child maintenance at the levels I was requesting. If this story is already touching you, please like, comment and share so more women can hear this warning. Patricia wasn't surprised. This is typical. Deny everything, counter-accuse, claim poverty. But we have documentation. Truth wins in the end. The next few months were brutal. Discovery phase meant both sides requesting documents, bank statements, phone records, witness testimonies. James's solicitor was aggressive, demanding everything from my medical records to my work performance reviews. They're trying to intimidate you, Patricia explained. Make you back down. But we're not backing down. We had our own requests. James's complete financial records, his phone records to prove the affairs, testimony from his commanding officers about his conduct and proof of his assets. What we discovered was shocking even to me. Over the past 7 years, James had spent approximately £47,000 on personal entertainment, travel and gifts, not for family, purchased £31,000 worth of vehicles, the Audi, the BMW, a motorcycle I hadn't even known about, maintained a savings account with £15,000, money I'd known nothing about, contributed to his military pension, worth an estimated £180,000 in current value. He'd claimed poverty while sitting on assets worth over £250,000. This is financial abuse, clear as day, Patricia said, highlighting the figures. And we're going to make sure the judge sees it. As part of the custody battle, the court ordered a CAFCAS report, a Children and Family Court Advisory and Support Service assessment to determine what custody arrangements served the children's best interests. A social worker named Jennifer Davies was assigned to our case. She interviewed me, James, Oliver, who was now old enough to express preferences, teachers at Oliver's school, Jean, my neighbor, and even Colonel Harrison. The interview with me lasted 3 hours and covered everything. My relationship with the children, my work schedule, my support network, my housing situation, my financial stability. Tell me about the children's relationship with their father, Jennifer said. It's virtually non-existent, I admitted. James has seen them perhaps 20 times in the past 2 years. He doesn't call. He doesn't video chat. Oliver used to ask about him constantly, but now he barely mentions him. Amelia doesn't know him at all. She cries when he picks her up because he's essentially a stranger. How does that make you feel? Heartbroken. I wanted my children to have a father. I tried everything to facilitate that relationship. But I can't force James to be a parent. I can only control my own actions, and I've been there for them every single day. Jennifer also interviewed James. I wasn't present, but according to court documents, his interview didn't go well. He claimed to be a devoted father prevented from seeing his children by a vindictive ex-wife. But when asked specific questions, what's Oliver's teacher's name? What's Amelia's favorite toy? What are their bedtimes? He couldn't answer. Major Damien seems to have limited practical knowledge of his children's daily lives, Jennifer's preliminary report noted. While he expresses a desire to be involved, there's little evidence of consistent past involvement or understanding of the children's needs and routines. Oliver's interview was heartbreaking. Jennifer showed me the transcript later with Oliver's permission. Jennifer, do you see your daddy much? Oliver, no. He's always busy with army stuff. Jennifer, would you like to see him more? Oliver, I don't know. Maybe. But it's okay if I don't. Mummy takes good care of us. Jennifer, tell me about your mummy. Oliver, she's the best. She makes my breakfast and takes me to school and helps with my homework and reads me stories and gives good hugs. She gets tired sometimes, but she always has time for me and Amelia. Jennifer, if you could choose, where would you want to live? Oliver, with Mummy. Always with Mummy. The final CAFCAS report issued in August recommended primary residence with Mother, me, supervised contact for father. Initially every other Saturday for 2 hours, building up to unsupervised if he proved consistent. Mandatory parenting classes for father. Child maintenance as per statutory guidelines. It was everything I'd hoped for. The final hearing was scheduled for September 14th at Southampton Family Court. Patricia, her junior solicitor Marcus, and I arrived at 9 a.m. James was there with Jeffrey Hamilton, looking uncomfortable in his dress uniform. An obvious attempt to play the heroic soldier card. Judge Elizabeth Pemberton presided. She was in her early 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that seemed to see through bullshit instantly. The hearing lasted 2 days. Patricia presented our case methodically. Day 1. Financial evidence. She walked through James's income versus what he'd contributed. Showed bank statements proving his expenditures on entertainment while claiming poverty. Displayed text messages where he refused to send money for school fees but had just bought a £2,000 motorcycle. Jeffrey tried to counter, claiming the expenditures were necessary for James's mental health, that I was exaggerating his income, that military life had unique expenses. Judge Pemberton wasn't buying it. Mr. Hamilton, I've seen the figures. Major Damien earned approximately £350,000 over 7 years and contributed less than £32,000 to his family. That's 9%. 9%. Military service doesn't excuse abandoning one's children. Day 1, evidence of neglect. Patricia called Colonel Harrison as a witness. He testified about James's character, the complaints I'd made, the direct payment arrangement he'd tried to implement. Major Damien had a reputation in the mess, Colonel Harrison said carefully. He was known for spending lavishly on himself while being, how shall I put this, economical regarding family matters. It was noticed. It was discussed. It was not befitting an officer. We also heard from Oliver's headmaster who testified about the persistent late payment issues, about seeing me in tears in his office trying to explain why fees were late, about Oliver's anxiety when threatened with exclusion. Mrs. Damien has been a dedicated mother struggling under impossible circumstances, the headmaster said. While Major Damien has never once attended a parents' evening, a school play or a sports day in 3 years. Day 2. Evidence of infidelity and character. This was harder. Patricia introduced phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts to women who weren't me. She showed bank transfers to women. She even had testimony from one woman, Amber, who James had dated while we were married. Amber, not her real name, she testified anonymously, was a civilian administrator at Tidworth. She'd been seeing James for 8 months before discovering he was married. He told me he was divorced, she said via video link. He never mentioned children. He spent money on hotels, meals out, gifts. I had no idea his family was struggling. When I found out the truth, I ended it immediately. Jeffrey tried to discredit her, suggesting she was lying for revenge. Judge Pemberton shut him down. Mr. Hamilton, we have corroborating evidence. Bank statements, phone records, testimony from multiple sources. Your client's infidelity is established. Move on. Day 2, Pie testimony. Finally, I took the stand. Patricia walked me through my story. Everything I've told you here. I was calm, factual, holding back tears through sheer willpower. Jeffrey cross-examined me. He was aggressive, trying to make me seem vindictive, unreasonable, a woman scorned seeking revenge. Mrs. Damien, isn't it true you blocked your husband's number, preventing him from contacting his children? I blocked him after 7 years of sporadic contact and broken promises. And he had other ways to reach me, through family, through solicitors, through official channels. He chose not to use them. You admit to checking his phone without permission? Yes. I was desperate to understand why money meant for my children was disappearing while bills went unpaid. Isn't it true you've alienated the children from their father? Well, James did that himself by being absent. I've never spoken badly about him to the children. I've made excuses for him, protected him, lied to cover his failures. But I can't manufacture a relationship he refuses to build. Jeffrey went on for over an hour, but I held firm. When I stepped down, I was shaking but proud. I told the truth, and the truth was enough. Judge Pemberton delivered her judgment on September 22nd. We weren't required to appear in person. She sent her written judgment to both solicitors. I was at home when Patricia called. Melissa, sit down. You're going to want to hear this. She read me the key parts. On the marriage breakdown. This court finds that Major Damien engaged in sustained financial abuse, emotional neglect and infidelity throughout the marriage. His behavior falls well below the standard expected of any spouse, let alone a commissioned officer in His Majesty's Armed Forces. Mrs. Damien has demonstrated extraordinary patience and resilience in trying to make this marriage work. The breakdown is entirely attributable to Major Damien's failures. On custody. The children will reside primarily with Mrs. Damien, who has been their primary caregiver throughout their lives. Major Damien will be granted supervised contact every other Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., supervised by a CAFCAS-approved supervisor at a contact center. This arrangement will be reviewed in 6 months. Unsupervised contact may be considered if Major Damien demonstrates consistency and completes a parenting program. On child maintenance. Major Damien will pay child maintenance of £850 per month, effective immediately, to be deducted directly from his wages. He will also pay all school fees, uniforms and educational expenses, plus 50% of medical costs not covered by NHS. On backdated payments, Major Damien owes £28,000 in backdated child maintenance. This will be paid in installments of £500 monthly in addition to ongoing maintenance. On assets, the BMW vehicle, valued at £18,000, will be sold with proceeds going to Mrs. Damien as partial compensation for his neglect. Major Damien's savings account, £15,000, will be liquidated with £10,000 going to Mrs. Damien, £5,000 retained by Major Damien. On the pension, Mrs. Damien is entitled to 40% of Major Damien's military pension accrued during the marriage, to be paid upon his retirement. On costs, Major Damien will pay Mrs. Damien's legal costs in full, £200, as his unreasonable behavior necessitated these proceedings. Tell me in the comments, what is the worst financial betrayal you've ever seen in a marriage? I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, crying with relief. Melissa, you there? Patricia asked. Yes. Is this real? It's real. You won. Complete victory on every point. That was 18 months ago. Life is different now. The divorce was finalized in November that year. I legally changed my name back to Melissa Carter, and changed the children's surnames to Carter as well, something the judge permitted given James's minimal involvement in their lives. James has attended exactly 4 of the scheduled contact visits. The children barely know him. Oliver goes because he's told he has to, but he's indifferent. Amelia cries and clings to me. She doesn't understand why this stranger gets to take her from Mummy. The maintenance payments come regularly now, deducted at source by the Army. The £850 plus £500 backdated payment has transformed our lives. Combined with my teaching salary, we're comfortable for the first time in years that I paid off all my credit card debt. £8,500 total. I paid back my brother Thomas the £2,000 I owed him. I bought Oliver new school shoes without panicking about the cost. I took the children to Disneyland Paris last summer, our first real holiday in 7 years. The £10,000 from James's savings account went into an account for the children's future. University, driving lessons, first flats, whatever they need. I'm still teaching at Fareham Primary, but I've been promoted to Year 5 and taken on additional responsibilities as literacy coordinator. My salary is now £34,000. My mother still lives with us, though we've moved to a larger house. A 4-bedroom rental in Fareham that's near the children's schools and my work. We have space now. Room to breathe. Oliver is thriving. He's 8 now, in Year 4 and excelling academically. He's been selected for the gifted and talented program in maths. He plays football on Saturdays when he's not at contact visits, and is learning piano. He rarely asks about James anymore. Amelia is 2.5, talking up a storm full of personality and opinions. She calls my mother Ganny, and follows her around constantly. She has no memory of the bad times, and I'm grateful for that. I've continued therapy with Dr. Amin, though less frequently now, once a month instead of weekly. She's helped me process the trauma, understand the patterns, rebuild my sense of self-worth. You're a survivor, she told me in our last session. And more than that, you're a fighter. You fought for your children when it would have been easier to give up. That takes real courage. I've started dating again, cautiously. A lovely man named Daniel, a teacher at a neighboring school, asked me out for coffee 3 months ago. We're taking it slow, but it's nice to be treated with respect, to be with someone who actually shows up when he says he will, who wants to know about my day, who treats my children with kindness. He's not James, I told Dr. Amin, laughing. That's literally the highest compliment I can give. People ask me what I've learned from all this. Here's what I tell them. Love is not enough. You can love someone with your whole heart and they can still destroy you. Love without respect, without integrity, without follow-through is just empty words. Actions speak louder than words. James said he loved us. He said he'd change. He said he'd do better. But his actions told the real story. Believe the actions. Financial abuse is real abuse. It leaves no visible bruises, but it's devastating. It traps you, controls you, diminishes you. It's as serious as physical abuse, and we need to talk about it more. You can't change another person. You can only change yourself. I spent 7 years trying to turn James into the husband and father I needed him to be. It was wasted effort. He is who he is. The question was never, can he change? The question was, can I change by accepting this? The answer was no. Leaving is not failure. I used to think divorce meant I'd failed. Now I understand. Staying in a destructive marriage is what would have been failure. Leaving was success. It was strength. It was choosing myself and my children. You're stronger than you think. I survived things I thought would break me. I provided for my children on my own. I went to court against a man who tried to intimidate me. I rebuilt my life from nothing. If I can do it, anyone can. Ask for help. The biggest mistake I made was staying silent for so long. When I finally told my family, my friends, professionals, they all supported me. Nobody judged me. Everyone wanted to help. But they couldn't help if they didn't know. Your children are watching. They see how you allow yourself to be treated. They learn from your example what relationships should look like. By leaving James, I taught Oliver and Amelia that they deserve respect, that it's okay to walk away from situations that harm you, that their mother has dignity and strength. That's worth everything. There is life after abuse. I'm happy now. Really, genuinely happy in a way I haven't been in 8 years. The weight is gone. The anxiety is gone. The constant worry about money, about James's next disappearance, about how to explain to the children why daddy doesn't care. All gone. We have peace. We have stability. We have joy. I've never sent this letter. I probably never will. But I wrote it, and writing it helped. James, you'll never read this, but I need to write it anyway. I don't hate you. I did for a while. That white-hot rage that comes from betrayal, from watching someone destroy what could have been beautiful. But I don't anymore. I mostly feel sorry for you. You missed everything. Oliver's first day of school. Amelia's first steps. The Christmas mornings, the birthday parties, the ordinary Tuesday evenings reading bedtime stories. You missed the whole beautiful, messy, ordinary life we could have built together. And for what? For nights in nightclubs you probably don't remember? For women whose names you've forgotten? For a BMW that's now sold? For the hollow satisfaction of keeping money from your children? You told yourself you were the victim. That I was demanding, ungrateful, unreasonable. That the army took all your time. That you couldn't afford to send more. But those were lies, James. You knew they were lies even as you told them. The truth is simpler and sadder. You just didn't care enough. Not about me, not about Oliver, not about Amelia. We weren't worth the effort to you. And that's not on us, that's on you. I hope one day you'll understand what you lost. I hope it'll hurt. Not because I'm vindictive, but because that pain might be the only thing that makes you better for the next family if you ever have one. I hope you'll look at our children when they're grown, successful, happy, well-adjusted despite you, and realize you contributed nothing to that. That they became amazing in spite of you, not because of you. I hope you'll grow old and realize too late that money and status and whatever else you chased instead of us weren't worth it. But mostly I hope you'll leave us alone. We've built a good life without you. We don't need your sporadic attempts at involvement, your guilt-driven gestures, your revisionist history where you're the wronged party. We're done. We're free. We're happy. And you? You're just a man I used to know. Goodbye, James. Melissa. It's a Saturday morning in March. Oliver is 9 now, reading Harry Potter obsessively and playing in a football league. Amelia is 3, starting nursery school in September, full of questions about everything. We're in the kitchen, me, the kids, my mother. I'm making pancakes while Mum helps Amelia set the table. Oliver is telling us about his upcoming school trip to a science museum in London. And Miss Davies says we'll get to see real space rockets and everything. Can I get a souvenir from the gift shop? We'll see, I say, smiling. Depends on how expensive the souvenirs are. I've got £10 saved, he says proudly. Then absolutely. My phone buzzes. A text from Daniel. Good morning. Still on for the park later? Me, definitely. Kids are excited. Daniel has been in our lives for 8 months now. The children adore him. He comes to Oliver's football matches, plays tea party with Amelia, helps with homework, joins us for Sunday dinners. He's reliable, kind, present. He's shown me what a real partner looks like. It's early still, we're not living together, not engaged, taking things slowly. But it's good. Really good. Is Daniel coming today? Amelia asks, somehow sensing I'm texting him. Sweetie. We're all going to the park. Yay. Daniel pushes the swings really high. I look at my children, healthy, happy, secure. I look at my mother who's been my rock through everything. I look around this cozy kitchen in our comfortable home. I think about my job, which I love. My friends who support me. My therapy progress. My peace of mind. This is what freedom looks like. Sometimes people say to me, but don't you wish you'd left sooner? Don't you regret those 7 years? And yes, I wish I'd suffered less. I wish my children had been spared the instability. I wish I'd had the courage to leave after year 1 or 2 or 3. But I also understand, I left when I was ready. When I had the strength, the resources, the support. When staying became more painful than leaving. And that's okay. Pancakes are ready, I announce. Oliver and Amelia cheer. Mum pours orange juice. We sit around the table. My little family, my chosen family, my real family. 7 years in hell taught me something valuable. I know what I'll never accept again. I know my worth. I know my strength. I know that I deserve love that shows up, that keeps promises, that sees my value. James Damien took a lot from me. 7 years. Thousands of pounds. Peace of mind. But he didn't break me. He tried, but he failed. I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still fighting. I'm still loving my children fiercely and building the life they deserve. And that's the real ending to this story. Not the divorce decree, not the court judgment, not even the money I finally received. The real ending is this moment. This ordinary, beautiful Saturday morning with my children laughing over pancakes and my mother smiling and a text from a good man who wants to spend time with us. This is victory. This is what it looks like when you choose yourself. This is life after hell, and it's beautiful. If you're watching this and seeing yourself in Melissa's story, please know, you are not alone. Financial abuse affects millions of people across all demographics. It's not your fault. Abusers are skilled manipulators. You didn't cause this. You deserve better. You deserve a partner who contributes, who shows up, who treats you with respect. Leaving is possible. It's hard, but it's possible. And there's life, good life, on the other side. Document everything. Tell someone. Make a plan. And when you're ready, take that first step toward freedom. You're stronger than you know. Join our community by subscribing. We tell real stories that heal, teach, and open eyes. Subscribe for more real-life stories that open eyes and save lives. Advice to women. Stop believing a man will magically change after marriage or children. A stingy man during dating becomes wicked in marriage, not better. Don't hide suffering. Silence empowers abusers. Your children deserve a mother who is mentally stable. Love is not proven by how much pain you can endure. Leaving is not failure. Staying in toxicity is what destroys destinies. Advice to men. Providing for your family is not charity. It is responsibility. You cannot be a legend outside and a monster inside your home. Respect is not shown by title or rank, but by how you treat your wife and children. Infidelity is not normal. It destroys generations. Fatherhood is not optional. Real men protect their families, they don't traumatize them. Why did she stay? The big question and the truth. She stayed because she believed the lie many women believe. He will change. She stayed because she already had a child. He stayed because she was pregnant during school. She stayed because she didn't want shame from family. She stayed because military men are feared and respected. and she hoped he would eventually behave. She stayed because every time he acted nice for 2 days she hoped that man was the real him. She stayed because she was already deep into the marriage and didn't want to start over. She stayed because she thought enduring pain made her a good wife. She stayed because she didn't want her children growing up without a father. She stayed because she didn't want to disappoint God or society. She stayed because she was emotionally tired, financially overwhelmed, and didn't know how to break free. But after 7 years of suffering she finally realized, staying was killing her. Leaving was the only way to stay alive. For herself and her children. Don't just watch. Like the video, share it, comment and subscribe for more real-life stories that open eyes and save lives.